This happens in a large store in a European country. When you purchase something from them and for any reason want to return the item, their policy is that they never give money back. They only give you a voucher redeemable the same day only. I went to the store today and purchased quite a long list of items. When I got home, my wife looked at them and said that we don't need some of them. I go back to the store. Barely 20 minutes pass. The returns manager smiles at me as I tell her I'd just purchased these and would like to return them. She tells me that I stepped out of the store so she can't get a refund. Only give me a voucher and I must buy something else. I'd already bought everything I needed. Then she tells me to take the products home and keep them for the next time I would need to buy something. Then I can come and get the voucher and redeem it. Imagine keeping a pair of shoes and a bowl, and remember to bring them with you the next time you happen to need something. I tried to reason, but she was adamant. Those are the rules. You stepped out of the store, you didn't get a refund. And then it clicked. I asked, so if someone wants to return an item without leaving the store, they get the money back? Yes. You see where this is heading. Malicious compliance kicking in. I ask to return the items and get the voucher. I take the voucher, get inside the store, find a product for exactly the same amount. Buy it with the voucher. Right after the cashier, there's the returns manager. Straight from the cashier, I go to her, hand her that random product I just bought and say, I would like to return this. I don't want it. And I never left the store. She is looking at me with barely contained rage in her eyes. I kid you not. The awkward pause was getting longer, and then her manager comes along, looks at us, and I smile at him and say, I never left the store and I would like to get a refund for this, please. He nods. Silent and not looking at me, she proceeds to refund me the money in cash. Company policy, right? To clarify, I am a woman. Also, my sister and I are both adults now and safely moved out. As long as I could remember, my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, would come up and hit me for no reason and often started fights with me. My parents started telling me that I would just have to hit her back because I'm stronger, so she would stop once she realized I would hurt her worse. Fast forward to me being 16, my sister was 14. We're sitting on the love seat in the living room with my stepdad across from us, asleep on the couch at 3 p.m. She hits me because I won't get up and get her a drink. I hit her back. She screams because I don't usually hit her back. My stepdad wakes up and starts yelling at her for being loud and demands to know what happened. She said I hit her. He then turns his anger to me. He yells at me, if you want to F around, you can write 5 pages front and backs. I will not bite people. If it's not done before dinner, I'm gonna take your phone and books. I made it clear that I hit her, not bit her, but he got even more angry and screamed, if you think you're so smart, then write 10 pages front and back. He went back to sleep on the couch. I wrote 5 pages front and back. I will not bite people unerotically. I will not bite people unconsensually. I will not bite people without asking first. I will not bite people because they are not food, along with some other ridiculous things I don't remember. I finished 5 pages before dinner, miraculously, and he read over them. He went red in the face. I thought I told you 10 pages, he raged. You said 10 pages if I think I'm so smart, which I don't, I innocently replied. This is not what I told you to write. Yes, it is. You said to write, I will not bite people, and that's exactly what I did. My mom got home at that point and overheard. Coming to investigate, she flipped through the pages and laughed. It made him angrier as he answered her questions on the assignment, and she took my side, still chuckling as we started making dinner. In my mid-20s, I worked for a multinational accounting firm. I, female 37, have always had a real firm policy for standing up when something doesn't sound right, irrelevant if it puts me in an awkward position. This story is how I maliciously complied and, in turn, made my director learn a lesson I hope she won't forget. We'll call her Karen, not her real name. Background on Karen. When she joined the team, we all liked her. She made great changes and we got on well with her. But the moment she was promoted to director and had direct reporting to the partner, she flipped, became a completely different person and made our life hell. Previously, she spent her career heading up call centers, which was really evident in her management style, and for some reason made it her mission to cut costs in the team and go under budget. This affected everything, from telling us we didn't have a stationary budget for pens and had to take from other teams' stores to only allowing a one-drink, one-course policy on team dinner events. This was a huge company, and other teams around us would go for fancy, all-expenses-paid social events, so we felt pretty put out. Her cost-cutting also extended to things like no overtime approvals unless way in advance. That didn't last long as we were understaffed so quickly emergencies weren't dealt with, and hiring school leavers instead of graduates as they were cheaper, despite the work needing more experience. Her favorite saying to everything was it's policy or blaming HR or higher-ups saying whatever new thing, even if a new irrelevant spreadsheet, would come from HR. Honestly, the amount of time HR spent on our Lil team in a company with 20K plus UK employees was astounding. Then came the day she booked an all-day training session from some external company to show us how to use a new system. She went on about it for weeks, was super excited that she had brought in this new system. The training was intense, so freaking technical, mind-numbing, and most of all, expensive. So what would normally be covered over a few days was crammed into one full day. They were paid hourly. Shot! She sent an email advising how we're expected to attend. It will go through the whole day and lunch would be provided, but it will be a working lunch. So training would also be through lunch. Needless to say, the thought of sitting in a stuffy room for 8 hours without a lunch break wasn't appealing. I asked for an exception as I really relied on going outside for an hour at lunch for a break. I was in the midst of high anxiety at the time, and my breaks got me through. She said it's policy that we would be expected to change our workday around to fit training, and there is no policy that requires her to allow me to go out. If I had an issue, I should check the HR manual. I think until now, this statement usually worked for her as no one really ever checked. I went one better. I went to HR, cue malicious compliance. Using the effective wording of for my mental health and well-being, HR replied, and of course disagreed as UK law mandates training as work and an 8-hour day requires at least 1 hour break, which I am allowed to choose what I do with. They CC'd Karen. Karen backed down, but verbally told me it was an exception for me and to not share with the rest of the team. Of course, I didn't comply. She was breaking the law, so I showed the email chain to everyone as they were complaining about the same thing. So me and the rest of the team came up with a little plan. Sandwiches were delivered. Budget sandwiches, of course, from the supermarket down the road, instead of our slightly more expensive internal catering team who caters for this exact type of thing for our 10-floor building. I stood up and announced I was going to lunch and would be back in an hour. Cue the rest of the team, all 12, standing up after me. Karen goes, "Where are you all going?" To which someone replied, "I understand that HR said we were allowed to leave the room for an hour for lunch." The look on her face. She knew she was stuck. She couldn't say anything. We left her there alone with the 2 trainers who seemed to guess something was up. I've never felt more satisfied in my life. We all had a good laugh about it outside. I think I even did a happy dance. She also knew she couldn't complain to me about it, as that would highlight her breaking the rules. I felt like I was walking on air all day. After this, there was much less blaming of HR, and generally she was a little skittish around me because she knew I didn't take her crap and would call her out. A second training session had to be booked since the training would never have worked in one day. There were lots of moans and groans about how expensive the extra training session costs, of course. I left a couple of months afterwards, and so did pretty much the rest of my team, replaced by school leavers, of course. But I'm very glad I complied. I believe Karen still works there, but for a much smaller team. I wish I had been the person practicing malicious compliance here, but it was one of my colleagues, Stephen. I worked night shift at the testing site for a major medical laboratory network. The shift was busy because patients' specimens were collected at service centers during the day, and couriers would bring all these specimens to the testing site, starting in the evening and continuing well into the night. My shift ended at 7 a.m. when the day staff would arrive and take over the analyzers. So the night shift supervisor had told me that if any couriered shipments arrived after 6 a.m., I should leave them for the day shift to do, because at 6 I needed to do end-run quality control on the analyzers, clean them, and file my paperwork. No time to start running a late batch of specimens. And we wouldn't get overtime for staying late to do those. But the day shift supervisor, Lily, didn't like it when samples were left for her staff to process, and she told me that I should be more efficient and get them done somehow. Then one morning she made a mistake. Instead of me on the night shift, it was Stephen. Lily came in at about 6:30 at the same time that a large batch of late specimens was dropped off. "Stephen, you have to process those," she said to him. Stephen didn't argue. He loaded all the specimens on the analyzers, and then, at exactly 7 a.m., he quietly went home. The day shift is typically busy at the start, so no one noticed that he had gone at first. Then the analyzer started producing results, flagging problematic specimens and so on, and everyone was searching for him. Had he gone to the washroom? Had he said anything to anyone? Where was the paperwork? What needed to be done now? Everyone was confused, and the situation created far more work than if the day shift had simply taken over from the start. Lily hated Stephen after that, but she never again told him to process late specimens either. Okay, so here goes nothing. I was 15, and my brother was 4. We were at a park behind my house when a very creepy lady came walking down with a 3-year-old in tow. Let's call them the entitled grandma and entitled kid. Now, me being nice, said hello, and they brushed it off. Then the entitled kid said, "I want your brother." Me, being polite and confused, "You can't take someone else. Sorry, kid." The entitled grandma was really pissed and told me that I cannot disrespect her little grandson and was required by her to give her my brother. When I said no again, she said, "How much do you want for him? Everyone has got a price." Me, being bewildered past the point of confusion, I told her that it was pretty illegal to sell a kid. Now the entitled kid was sobbing and throwing a tantrum saying he wanted a brother. The entitled grandma proceeded to attempt to bribe me with money she most likely didn't have. It gets worse. She attempts to grab my brother and run off. I wasn't the most fit dude, but I could easily catch up. I tackled her and she screamed, "This teen is trying to steal my grandson." Now my brother looks like me when I was 4, and a lot of people knew me. So when they saw me tackling an elder and heard it, they took my bro home. Then the woman proceeds to say that they were kidnapping her grandbaby, and I end up calling the police. The Subway, the sandwich place, had footage that she indeed tried to kidnap him in broad daylight. And eventually she was cuffed and taken away by the cops.